This is the Lighthouse Keeper experience. Wear headphones for better experience. The wind was the first thing you noticed. Not the usual sea wind. No, this one didn't howl or groan like the gales that battered the cliffs. This wind whispered. It pulsed like breath against the nape of your neck. And it didn't come from outside. It came from the tower. Your name is Elias Thorn. You've been keeper of Worm Rock Light for 9 years now. A lonely post 3 miles off the Cornish coast, on a jagged black shard of stone barely big enough to hold the tower and your quarters. Before this, you were a fisherman. Before that, a mechanic. And before that, a man running from something you've long forgotten or forced yourself to. You arrived here to escape the noise of the world, but lately, it's the silence that's begun to unnerve you. Before we drift further, welcome to the Oral Tapestry, where the winds carry old stories and the sea keeps its secrets. If you find peace, wonder, or even unease in what we share, consider supporting us by subscribing. Leave a like or share this tale with someone who needs a strange story before sleep. Now, close your eyes and let's return to Worm Rock. Your routine is clockwork. You wake before dawn, make tea, log the weather, polish the lens, oil the gears, and watch the sea, every inch of it. Pale gray in the mornings, like steel, deep indigo by dusk. At night, it turns black as ink, bottomless and watchful. And always you tend the lamp. The lamp is everything. It must never go out. It is the heartbeat of the tower, the one constant in a world of drifting tides. It watches when nothing else does. There are quiet days too, days where the sea is kind and blue, when the air smells of salt and seaweed. You fish off the rocky edge of the isle, sitting with a simple rod, humming sea shanties half remembered from your childhood. Sometimes you catch cod, sometimes crabs, once even a rusted coin-shaped object with glyphs too faded to read. And then there were other days, strange days. Like the morning you found driftwood carved into the shape of a whale, set neatly outside the lighthouse door. No ship in sight, no footprints, just the carving. You brought it inside and kept it on the mantel, though some nights it's facing the other way. Or the time you saw something gliding just beneath the surface, larger than any whale, trailing green light like falling stars. It circled the rock 3 times and vanished. Then there was the singing. One dusk, while polishing the lens, you heard it. A lullaby in a language older than anything you've ever known, floating up from the sea. You leaned out the hatch. Down below, 4 figures moved slowly through the surf. Long, pale arms, black hair dripping across their faces. They watched to the sea itself, their voices melting into the waves. You stayed awake that night, unsure if you were more haunted or blessed. Some mornings you wake to the gulls in frenzy. Fish with their eyes missing float near the rocks. Once you found a ring of barnacles formed in a perfect spiral. Never seen one like it before. You took a photo. The photo was blank. Your dreams grow stranger. You walk through halls made of coral, under ceilings of salt. Voices echo through the walls, calling you captain, calling you keeper, calling you home. But you never had a crew. And still, every evening, you light the lamp. The isolation doesn't feel like loneliness anymore. It feels like you're being watched, waited on. But it wasn't all silence. One morning, you decided to take the small rowboat out past the rock shelf. The sea was unusually still, the kind of stillness that makes your skin prickle. You cast your line and waited. The water was glass. Hours passed. Then a tug, a strong one. You pulled, and something pulled back. It didn't feel like a fish. It didn't even feel like an animal. It was cold. Not temperature cold, soul cold. You fought it, adrenaline rushing, your mind screaming with ancient panic. And then it breached. A shape the size of a barn, sleek and black and covered in ridges of bone, eyes like pits, tentacles or maybe fins rising from its back. It let out a low moan that turned your bowels to ice. You tried to scream, but no sound came. The sky seemed to go dark, the sea boiled. Then a snap. You woke up, back in your bed, drenched, not sure if it was sweat or seawater. The sheets were soaked, your hands were trembling. You stumbled to the kitchen, opened your last bottle of rum. It burned, but the burn was grounding. You sat by the window and watched the lamp spin its lazy circle across the waves. And then you thought of her. Her name was Anna. You haven't spoken it aloud in years. She used to braid your hair when the sun went down. She laughed like a tide rising. Her eyes were storm-colored. And she told you once, if you ever went to sea, never turn your back on the water. The sea doesn't forget. But you did. She drowned during a storm. You were drunk on shore, passed out beneath a broken sign. By the time you reached the docks, they'd already pulled her from the surf, mouth open, eyes wide. You've never forgiven yourself. The sea took her. Maybe that's why you took this job. Maybe you thought if you stared at it long enough, it would give her back. You whisper her name sometimes when the waves are calm. Sometimes you think you hear it echo back. Then, 2 weeks ago, during a storm unlike any you've seen, something changed. The sea heaved and shrieked like a living thing. The wind slammed into the stone with fists of salt and rain. You secured the hatch, latched every bolt, and rode out the violence in the upper chamber. Then, the lamp flickered. Just once, but it did. And it has never done that before. Climbing to the lens room, you found everything seemingly intact, except the outer glass, which was fogged, not from within, but from something outside, something breathing on it. That's when you saw the marks. 3 elongated prints dragging down the glass, like fingers or claws. You stared for what felt like hours. Then you turned away, whispering lies to yourself. Maybe it was a bird, maybe salt and wind, maybe you imagined it. But deep down, you knew better. That night, sleep refused to come. The days since have bled together. You've started to hear sounds in the foghorn, long droning tones that form strange hymn-like patterns. Some part of you begins to hum along without meaning to. The rhythm stays with you even after the horn goes quiet. You wake up in odd places, on the stairs, at the base of the tower, once with your boots soaked in seawater and your hands covered in tiny cuts as though you'd clawed your way up jagged stone. But you don't remember leaving your bed. You tell yourself it's just isolation playing tricks. You tell yourself that until you check the pantry. Supplies have gone missing. Not just eaten, gone. Tins of food, lantern oil, matches. You find the trapdoor to the cellar ajar one morning, dust disturbed, a smell rising from below, briny, damp, like something long sealed, breathing again. You never go down there, not since you arrived. The cellar predates the tower, a carved spiral descending into stone. At the bottom, a hole, not a room, just a perfect circle in the floor, blacker than any sea, hungering. You once dropped a wrench down there. It never hit bottom. Now, at night, the hole hums, and then it sings. You write a letter, just in case. You place it in a bottle and cast it into the waves, unsure who you're writing to. If you find this, you say, remember me not as mad, but as a man who watched too long and saw something watching back. Each evening, the lamp grows harder to light. Each morning, the horizon feels farther away. The sea no longer reflects the sky. Sometimes it reflects something else. Then one night, you see her. She stands waist deep in the water, hair like white sea foam, eyes too wide, skin stretched smooth and thin. She doesn't move, just watches. You close your eyes. You count. You whisper prayers you barely remember. And still, she's there. Mouth closed, but you hear her voice. Come below. After that, things get worse. You stop eating. The stairs stretch longer. The sky bends lower. Some nights you sleepwalk to the spiral door and wake with your hand on the handle. The final straw comes when you hear your name spoken in the wind, not shouted, not screamed, whispered. Elias, come below. Before that final descent, the tower began to shift around you in subtler ways. You started finding things in the logbook you didn't write. Names, coordinates, weather entries from decades ago. Pages you had marked blank were suddenly filled with looping script, half legible, as though written by someone with shaking hands. One entry read, "Anna returned today, but her eyes are wrong. She sings to the cellar now. I can't stop her." You flipped through the older logs, yellowed and brittle, and found a pattern. Every keeper before you had written about dreams, the same melody, the same woman, always the same final words. Come below. It wasn't just you. And some nights you saw her, Anna, on the rocks, hair slick with salt, her dress torn, soaked. She looked the way you remembered until she turned, her mouth open too wide, her eyes no longer her eyes. You screamed into your pillow, you drank, you prayed. The whispers came anyway. The tower groaned with a language you never learned but now understood. And then the dreams changed. You weren't Elias anymore. You were someone else, or something else, moving through tunnels of coral, singing with others, holding a glowing object, a heart, a pearl. It pulsed like a tide. Each morning, the waking world felt thinner. You began to forget what day it was. You began to forget your own voice. You do not remember walking the spiral, but you remember the carvings on the stone, symbols that pulse when touched. You remember your breath becoming thin, water heavy. You remember the door at the bottom, white, smooth, not wood, not stone, something else, something bone. You open it. Silence. You don't remember anything after that. They say the boat came for you 6 days late. The lamp was still burning. Your logbook closed neatly. Tea still warm on the stove. But you were gone. Not a trace, no struggle, no signs of distress. Only your boots placed beside the cellar hatch. And every full moon since, the new keeper hears something, just under the wind, a voice that isn't a voice. Elias, come below. Sometimes the tower hums back. The new keeper doesn't know your name, not yet, but he finds the boots, finds the bottle on the shore, finds the logbook and the pages that weren't there before. He hears footsteps at night, even though the hatch is bolted. And every now and then he swears he sees a figure standing at the edge of the rocks, watching. Once he called out. The sea answered. Not with waves, not with wind, with a voice, familiar, hoarse, echoing from deep below the stone. Light the lamp. And so he does, night after night, as something in the cellar begins to sing.